It's Crick Buzz Chatter. Adam Collins and Michael Vaughan. What a day for England. Over 400 runs on the day. The vast majority of those to the home side who are flying. They're in the lead by 67. A magnificent 189 from Zach Crawley. Fourth test ton, first against Australia. Did just about everything right. Chancy but effective. Joe Root batted with him for such a long time. Not a long time. They put on 206 in 186 balls, but it's changed the entire complexion, not only of this test, but maybe this series too.
Yeah, you get a sense that Australia are on the ropes. You know, it's always dangerous. It's like, when you're playing golf in a match play and you go two up, it's quite dangerous because whoever's two down attacks, and that's what England have done in the last two test matches. They've got nothing to lose. They're a dangerous side and a hard side to play against because they're just fearless and they don't care, or they don't seem to worry about the losing aspect of the game because they can't. So that's dangerous. But Australia's tactics today were a little bit iffy, but let's be honest, today's all about one player. Zach Crawley's just played one of the great Ashes Test hundreds. When you've got Jim Maxwell, I don't know how many Ashes series Jim's commentated on, but it's a lot. And
all the way back to, I think, 1982-83.
Right, when you've got Jim saying it's one of the great Ashes centuries, you've got to listen, and that was special. All right, he had a little bit of fortune. He played a couple of massive yahoos earlier that I was like, oh, steady on, just put that in the locker. And then after lunch, to get 106 and 82 balls in that afternoon session with pure stroke play. It was a masterclass in just playing still, playing the drive on the up, that flick over wide mid-on for six off, I think it was Mitchell Marsh bowling. Fantastic, reverse sweep, the lat slog of Travis Head, smashing him into the stands. That was a joy to watch. I think, the whole series, there's not been a day where I've been on this show and thought, oh, that was a bit boring. Another fantastic day, but Joe Root played the Joe Root way. Mo Nally did a brilliant job at three, just hanging in there. But today for me is all about one player and the faith that this management have shown in Zach Crawley. And there's been probably many times and many managements over the history of Test cricket that would have got rid of Zach Crawley because he's been a bit inconsistent, but they've kept consistent in terms of their selection for today. Yep. And they earned the right to say they got it right because Ben, Baz and Robert Key stuck with Zach for today. They always felt he could play an innings like that, and he's delivered. Yeah,
they've said it time and again, if you keep the faith, you'll do something special, and that's what that is. I mean, you look at the middle session, 178 for one in 25 overs, going at 7.2 and over. There aren't many people in world cricket who can do that, and sure, he's got Joe Root for company for most of that, who was batting exquisitely for 84 till he got a grubber from Hazelwood late in the day. But as you say, it's all about Crawley and the way he was able to put so much pressure not only on the Aussie bowlers but also on Pat Cummins. And I know that he and Smith work in tandem and they talk a lot about their partnership as captain and as vice captain, but when Steve Smith's at deep backward square leg and Cummins is bowling and going in a run a ball, they were cycling through their plans at 1 a minute at different points in that middle stanza.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy when you've got a player like Zach and you've got a brilliant player like Joe Root's just playing, but Zach's going. You start questioning yourself as a captain, right, what do we turn to? Go to the bouncer, tried that, Bosch, that got delivered with. Then goes wide of off stump, he throws it on, a few go over third and it's the boundary can't continue. But, I always think, and it's easier now that I'm not a captain and I'm sat up there watching, I always just go back to basics. Yep. It's always hard when you're trying to chase. You generally always go back to, right, let's just set a more negative field but hit off stump. I think there's two moments. Zach Crawley's innings brilliant, but then the Joe Root dismissal late in the day, that was a glaring delivery. There's cracks in the surface. I saw them this morning. There's a crack exactly where the ball hit for Joe Root. It's just outside the right-hander's off stump. It's a big crack down the surface. We're going to see more and more of those balls keep a little bit low throughout the day. Then Ben Stokes came out there and a couple sprung off a length. It's a good test match wicket because there's a little bit in there, but I think the way that England played and the dominance and the quick nature in which they've scored is not what the pitch is. I think there's a lot more in that service, and almost Zach Crawley's knocked Australia off their length. He's knocked them off their mindset. And he's almost just said, right, I'm single-handedly going to make sure that we're going to the Oval 2. Or there's work to be done, there's 10 wickets to be got, I'm sure Australia will fight, but that innings, I think, will be an innings that we may be talking about as the hover cover starts to go on the pitch. It's going to be an innings that we are talking about maybe for a long, long period of time, because really that innings today has really grabbed this game for England.
And some of the numbers put it in perspective as well. So it's the quickest Ashes 150 for England. From 152 balls, he reached his 150th run. By the way, with two stunning drives. I mean, the on drive on I guess he was on 144 to get to 148. That's shot of the day, and he's playing it that deep into his innings, putting so much pressure on. And then the partnership of 206 that I mentioned before from 186 balls, that's the quickest Ashes 200 stand ever. They've been doing this for nearly 150 years. So that's the type of pressure Australia were up against. And now, Stokes getting himself in late in the day, Harry Brook in sparkling form. That pair have put on 33 before the close. They come back tomorrow. They can look at their rain apps. I'm sure you will too, Vorney. And if they see there's a bit more time in this game than we think, remembering that the forecast for day 4 and 5 was pretty grim, they can maybe bat once and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what their mindset should be. And you know, they've scored at 5.33, but actually I didn't think that they played as much baseball as I saw early in the series. I saw a bit of sense. You know, when the field was spread, England just went, thank you very much, we'll take the singles. Yes, if you bowl a bad ball, we'll whack it to the boundary. That last partnership, you know, that wasn't baseball, that was just making sure that they were getting to stunts. The tactics of Australia in that last 40 minutes, I've never seen anything like it. You've got players out there, surely late in the day you've got to think wickets. So I think Australia's day today was so poor that it might just trigger them into a more mentality kind of positivity going forward in the series.
And also the trick of keeping Stark on the park. I mean, a number of little niggles through the day, and not far from where we are here, just over at Long Off at one stage, landing heavily on his shoulder. Who knows how serious that injury is. He did go off the ground a couple of times late in the day. All right, Vorney, let's go into the hotspot. In the hotspot today, Australia's selection not going with a spinner. Travis Head went the distance straight away. Clearly a premeditated plan from Zach Crawley that absolutely came off. But I guess instead of talking about Todd Murphy, it reinforces, does it not, the gap that Nathan Lyon leaves, how for 10 years he was set and forget from one end. When he's not here, it makes it an awful lot harder for a captain.
Yeah, I mean, it almost takes me back to Shane Warne. You know, when Shane Warne was out of the Aussie team, you know, Stuart McGill wasn't playing. You know, that period where they were kind of trying to find the spinner, and then Nathan Lyon arrived. But those first initial, I don't know how many tests it was, Australia struggled. And I think Nathan Lyon is that good, he's almost impossible to replace. And Tom Murphy's a good young spinner, he did really well in India, but I don't think he'd have had much of an effect today. I think Australia, in my eyes, got the team right. They didn't bat well enough. I think it's 317, we all thought, oh, that'd be par. Well, it's clearly not. You know, they needed a few more runs. And I just worry about, I don't know, I'm English, so I shouldn't be worried, but I do concern myself with the mentality that Australia have brought, particularly on today where you saw too many fielders spread. An Australian side that looked a bit tired. They've played 5 test matches now. The captain's played in every single one of them. You know, whether the captain's tired from captaincy or tired from bowling, he just looks a little bit jaded. Again, that's understandable, but he's somehow got to find that energy. He's got to somehow get that energy back, and he's got to get that team rejuvenated for tomorrow, because obviously Australia can get something out of this test match. You just never know. They could go through England in the morning, they could get a lead, and chasing anything on a surface like this won't be easy. But when you have a really, really bad day, and today was a really bad day for Australia and a brilliant day for England, there's not many test matches that you come back from in this series. If you look at teams that have really, really bad days, there's not many that bounce back and go, right, we'll grab it back. So I just think the captain has somehow got to find that energy that we saw in the first 2 games. And that first test match, when he found the energy to get his team over the line with that bat in hand, he's got to try and find that inner strength once again to try and get this team motivated to be a bit more positive.
And on that theme, let's press fast forward. Fast forward, if you're Pat Cummins tonight, you're sitting in that dressing room just over from where we're recording this video, what's the message to the side? Would you address the team tonight, or would you get home, get in the ice bath and return tomorrow morning? And when they do have that conversation, along what lines will it run?
I don't think you can do too much talking after play. I think it's done. I think it's more about tomorrow morning, you know, and arriving and just being a little bit more positive. You know, I want to see Australia, you know, the Australian that I've seen for many, many generations has looked to get wickets. You know, I saw too many times on day 2 where, you know, the field spread, and I'm thinking, how are you getting them out? You know, it was almost like when we used to play against Australia back in the day, and Hayden and Lang were smashing it to all parts. And I used to think back and go, wait a minute, we used to have all these fields spread and almost get intimidated by these aggressive players. And the only way that you can play aggression is be aggressive back. You know, I think Australia will arrive on day 3 and be a bit more aggressive, and then it'll always come down to how they bat. They're going to have to bat 4.5, 5 sessions to get something out of this test match.
A long way from the finish line for Australia. For England, they know what their plan will be when they resume tomorrow at 384 for 4 with Brook and Stokes both there. A fascinating day here at Old Trafford. Great to bring it to you on Cricket Buzz Chatter. Adam Collins, Michael Vaughan. Until tomorrow, bye.